Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another edition of our We Got This WA webinar series. First, I would love to thank our event partner, the Business Health Trust, for partnering with us to put on these great and informative events. A few webinar logistics to start us off. If you do need any technical assistance during the webinar, please use that chat function as you can see on the bottom of your screen and message Lee, who will be attentive and be able to help you with those technical issues. If you do have a question for our speaker or for myself, please use the Q&A box and we'll work to get those questions answered either during or after the webinar. Please note that we are recording this webinar and we will post a link to it on our We Got This WA series page for reference and revisiting if there's any information that you want to revisit afterwards. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with our program. I do want to make a few comments on current events before we do get started with this topic. The Chamber has been sending some messages lately to our members about what's been going on and wanted to start the program with some notes. The Chamber's mission is to help our members thrive in an equitable and inclusive economy. We cannot have an equitable and inclusive region when violence, hate, and discrimination persist. Our business community here in Seattle and in the region is as thoughtful, generous, and forward-thinking as any business community is in the country, and we have a tremendous platform on which we can help to bring about systemic change, and we need to do that now. Since the start of the pandemic, the Chamber's been thinking a lot about what economic recovery looks like for our region with our business community thought partners. We believe that we have an opportunity to reinvent our regional economy so that it is more economically competitive, equitable, and resilient than before. We know that words are not enough, and we want to be clear that we engage with our members and partners throughout the region to do the work necessary to build an anti-racist, inclusive economy where businesses and communities flourish. That will be hard work and it will often be uncomfortable, but we will all be better off because of it. We pledge to be an active partner in that work. With that, we have lots of great partners, both across the public and private sector, and one of those is the Employment Security Department. They're working really hard to get unemployment benefits for so many of the workers who have been impacted by COVID-19, and they're also having to work through some challenges with fraud. And so we're really excited to have Scott Michael, who is a Legal Services Coordination Manager from ESD, here with us today to speak on some of those issues and hopefully answer some questions. As we know, employers are really struggling with how to navigate that, how to advise their employees, and how to mitigate risk. So as I mentioned, Scott Michael works with ESD. We're so excited to have him introduce himself and speak to us today. And before we get started with that, we'd love to know how many of our listeners have received a fraudulent unemployment claim for one of your employees. So you'll see a poll pop up on your screen. So we'll ask you to participate in that. And then we'll see how many folks here on the webinar have been impacted at their employment or at their organization. And that should show us, wow, look at that. Thank you all for participating. And it's clear that this is something that really is impacting a lot of folks. So with that, Scott, I would love to turn it over to you to introduce yourself and get started on giving us some information on this topic.
All right. Yes, thank you for that. It is my pleasure to be here to address all of you and to give you an update on what the Employment Security Department is doing with regards to fraud and helping out Washington's unemployed individuals. So I am the Legal Services Coordination Manager. What that means in real life is that I help administer and represent the department in unemployment tax appeals, but I also help out with drafting bills with the legislature in order to help them with when they pass bills that they don't blow up the unemployment system. I also help write the rules. So we've been doing a lot of emergency rulemaking over the last 2 months. And also doing a lot of these webinars and helping to look at all the federal guidance that's coming out, looking at all the CARES Act that's been coming out, and helping to stand up the system in a way that we can pay out benefits to eligible individuals as quickly as we can. So for my prepared remarks, I'm going to talk about three big topics. One is right up front, I'll address the unemployment fraud issue. Our commissioner just had a press conference less than 2 hours ago on the unemployment fraud issue, as well as our issue. The second topic I'll talk about, Operation 100%, getting claimants paid as soon as we can. And then as a third and then the third topic I'll talk with you is an option for businesses who are starting to reopen, a way to leverage a littler known unemployment option for you as you are starting to reopen that will be a benefit to both you and your employees. So first off, let's talk about unemployment fraud. These are the freshest numbers and the freshest information that we just got from our commissioner less than a couple hours ago. First off, the fraud that the department has received, it's kind of almost, I'd like to view it as the worst kind of backhanded compliment you can ever receive. We at Washington Employment Security spent so many nights, weekends, hours doing what we could to stand up the CARES Act program. We are one of the first states in the nation to launch all three parts of the CARES Act benefits. You know, we went from a bill to going live with brand new federal programs within 21 days. And so the fact that we worked so hard to get these programs out and benefits out to Washingtonians first and fastest, and the fact that we already have a generous unemployment benefits package for Washingtonians, we became one of the largest target for criminals and thieves. And so they stole unemployment benefits money from us. And that really stinks. This has been a nationwide issue. The Inspector General for the U.S. Department of Labor, when they were rolling out the CARES Act, and as the COVID-19 virus and economic pandemic was rolling out, was already anticipating that there would be $36 billion nationwide of stolen money. So they already knew that fraud was going to be an issue and that states would be targeted and states would become victims. And unfortunately, Washington has been a victim. And the specific type of fraud that we have seen and over the past few weeks has been imposter fraud. And what imposter fraud is that when a criminal uses stolen personal information to file a claim on behalf of someone else, on behalf of an innocent victim who is not unemployed and is not otherwise entitled to unemployment benefits. And so they use that previously stolen information to then redirect unemployment benefits that would otherwise go to legitimate claimants to their own bank accounts. Now, there is no evidence that we are aware of that the unemployment systems have been hacked, that information has been stolen from us, that our data protection and our security, data security remains secure. So folks should not be scared about filing an unemployment claim and releasing their information to us. We have not been hacked. Instead, what they're doing is they're using previously stolen information, such as hacks from Equifax or eBay, and then combining that with any other publicly available information to file unemployment claims. So here are our three priorities as they relate to unemployment fraud and the getting unemployment benefits away from the hands of criminals and into the hands of legitimate claimants. One is stop the criminals. Two, help the victims. And three, get our money back. So first off, on stopping the criminals. Some measures that we have taken in order to stop the criminals is, one, we set up a secure portal for individuals and businesses to report imposter fraud to us. And we are continuing to cooperate, share information with state and federal law enforcement, U.S. Department of Labor, other states, so we can share information with them and they can share information with us about what they're seeing in order to, with these fraudulent claims. And then we are beefing up our computer systems to prevent these claims from being filed in the first place and to prevent money from going out the door. Last week, when we opened up that tip line, we received about 54,000 verified reports of fraud. We had already identified 44,000 of those claims as fraudulent through our own efforts. So, but we were grateful for all those tips because it also gave us 10,000 other tips that we could act on and stop criminals from receiving any more ill-gotten unemployment benefits. Another thing that we did, and this is unfortunate, and this is the thing that frustrates me most of all about criminals stealing these unemployment benefits, is that we did have to delay the payment of benefits by a couple of days so that we could make sure that claims are legitimate before we pay out. And then we also had to increase our efforts to ask more individuals to verify their identities in order to prevent more fraudulently obtained benefits from going out the door. And so having those delays built in there has been one of the most frustrating things because we here at Employment Security, we want to pay benefits to folks who are eligible. It's always a balance between paying folks who are eligible and not paying the criminals. If we wanted 100% of no benefits to go to criminals, we would not pay out any benefits. If we wanted the criminals to get as much money as they wanted, we would pay benefits to everybody. And then we wouldn't, and then we'd basically be sending taxpayer dollars out to known criminals. So we have to balance that. And it is a tricky balance, and it is unfortunate that we have to, in striking that balance, sometimes delay payments to legitimate claimants. So the second part, helping the victims, and I include in the victims the legitimate claimants who are getting their claims held up in this process. So yesterday we had 190,000 work items, so claims, in what we call our identity queue. So this is a bucket of work items in our computer system that we need to work through in order to verify that this is a legitimate claimant and not a criminal. And so as we are continuing to learn more about criminals through the data sharing and our own analysis, it's allowed us to laser focus our efforts to stop criminals and allowing us to free up legitimate claims that have been unfortunately caught up in the process. So last night, we cleared through, just through computer systems, bulk cleared 50,000 issues for payment. In the next few days, we're going to bulk clear another 50,000 claims, and half of those are actually criminals. So 50,000, so out of that 50,000, 25,000 around that are going to legitimate claimants, and another 25,000 are criminals that we are not going to pay. So that leaves us about 90,000 claims in what we call our identity queue. In order to address this 90,000, we're going to continue to hire hundreds more staff to help process claims and verify identities. And we do have to verify the identities based on the documents. We have to look at the documents. If people send us a document, unfortunately, we can't just assume that just because they send us a document, that it is a legitimate document. We have criminals who are sending us sophisticated fakes, and we have to have trained agents review those documents to make sure that it is the real McCoy and not a sophisticated fake. And then we also have some criminals who are hoping that that just because they sent a document that will clear it for them, because we just had some criminals just send us a picture of a guy drinking Red Bull, which isn't really helpful to us. If that was a legitimate claimant, yeah, that didn't help us. If it was a criminal hoping to simply hope that, you know, if you sent in any sort of document that we clear you, that's not going to work. We have to do the manual work to look at all these documents to make sure that these are not fakes. And so, unfortunately, that is the case. and so we are continuing to look through those, work with that 90,000, assign more people to work those claims, more agents to work those claims, and also trying to continue to find ways to leverage technology to bulk clear any more information that we can. For those who have been victims on our of identity theft, we're sorry that that has happened to you. We do have some information on our website, esd.wa.gov/fraud. I'm going to see if I can just post that in the chat for everybody. Oh, that went to all panelists. Let's send that to all panelists and attendees. Try that again. There we go. So I sent that out to everybody. That is our website with regards to fraud. That is where you can get more information about our anti-fraud efforts, as well as tools and resources for those of you who have found out that you are a victim of identity fraud. Third thing that we're doing is that we're recovering the money. So we continue to work with law enforcement, financial institutions, other agencies to see what we can do to get those ill-gotten funds back. So preliminary estimates that we have, and these are not the official numbers, we are still crunching the numbers, but right now the preliminary estimates is that it's between $550 to $650 million that have been stolen through imposter fraud claims. To date, we have recovered $333 million. So over half of the money that has been stolen, or at least that we estimate has been stolen, that we have recovered. So that is, and so we are continuing to work with law enforcement, and we are continuing to work with anybody else who we can work with in order to get more money back. In fact, one of the more unlikely places that we have gotten money back from is average Washingtonians. Sometimes when the criminals file a fraudulent claim on behalf of somebody, they forgot to change their bank account information or address. So sometimes we have had, your average Washingtonian all of a sudden has a bank card with unemployment benefits show up in their mailbox because the criminals forgot to change their address. And they have been gracious and honest and forthright and have been contacting us to let us know how they can return the money. So if that has been you or one of your employees, thank you. If that happens to you in the future, thanks for giving it back to us. That's one way that you can help. So how does this all impact you as employers and as claimants? One, if you are an innocent victim who has had a fraudulent claim filed on your behalf, and that's unfortunately, looking at that poll a lot, you will not need to repay those benefits. If you receive a notice in the mail that you need to repay these benefits, we call them an overpayment notice, that you have an overpayment and you need to repay this money back. If you are an innocent victim of identity theft, you did not file that claim, ignore that notice. Just ignore it. You can round file it if you really want to, keep it in your files for your own records, but you do not need to pay us any money back if you are an innocent victim of imposter fraud. And plus, if you do need to file a legitimate claim down the road, the fact that you are a victim of imposter fraud before will not prevent you from filing a legitimate claim. Employers who have had employees who have had employees who are the victims of imposter fraud, your experience rates will not be charged. Again, those benefits that are paid out will not be charged against your tax rates for the future. So you will not be dinged because a criminal stole your employee's identity. Things that you as Washington businesses and as Washingtonians can do to help us is, one, is pay attention to the mail that you get from us and pay attention to the electronic messages we send you. If you get a letter notifying you that you filed a claim when you didn't, please call us. Go to our website, file an online claim, or call us at 800-246-9764. Again, I will post that in the chat for everybody. That is our fraud hotline. Again, that's 800-246-9764 for those of you who are calling in by phone. If you're an employer and you get a letter that one of your employees filed a claim when you know they didn't, go ahead and continue to call 800-246-9763. Send us a letter back. Let us know online that, hey, this is a fraudulent claim. So next large topic, Operation 100%. Our number one priority within employment security is paying benefits to individuals who are eligible to receive those benefits as quickly as possible. So a few weeks ago, we launched Operation 100%. Our original goal was to get all eligible individuals who are awaiting payment on May 1st paid by June 15th. Unfortunately, due to the resources that we had to dedicate to stop and prevent unemployment fraud, we are not going to be able to reach that goal. It's more likely that it's going to take about 2 more weeks for us to reach that goal. So what are we doing to help reach that goal to get more claims paid? One, we are continuing to increase our staff. And 2, we're also continuing to improve the skills of the staff. Because just because you hire a body doesn't necessarily mean that they are able to do the complex work that it takes to process some of these more complex claims and issues that come with these claims. So we're continuing to improve the skills of our staff and increase our staff. We're also continuing to leverage technology to bulk clear issues. So if we can see a large chunk of issues that have common characteristics that don't need a human touch, we're continuing to sort through, start with the large buckets and get to increasingly smaller buckets of these sort of bulk of these opportunities to clear these issues through technology. We continue to focus our efforts on adjudicating the oldest claims. And as of the latest numbers we have on our website, there are some people, unfortunately about 90 people, who have been waiting 12 weeks of benefits. We personally, as an agency, find that unacceptable. We have committed through Operation 100% to return to what has been our normal timeline of being able to adjudicate issues within 21 days. 12 weeks is not a standard that we are going to take lying down. We are continuing to focus our efforts to clear out those old issues and get people back to a standard of 21 days. And also, something to remember to everybody is that no matter how long you have been waiting, you will continue to be paid retroactive to the date you are eligible. So if you are part of that unfortunate group of about 90 people who've been waiting 12 weeks, when we do clear you, you're going to get those 12 weeks of benefits to which you're entitled, including any of the $600 bonus payments that's available through the CARES Act. And then the last topic I want to bring up is an option for folks who are starting to reopen and return to business as usual, to the extent that that is possible within the community in which you live. One is basically what we call shared work. Other states call it a work share program. On a federal level, it's called a short-time compensation. And what this is that it's an alternative to completely laying off people and having them completely unemployed. Instead, through the shared work program, what you do is you offer them reduced hours between 10% and 50%. And then the unemployment system will come in with 10% to 50% of their normal weekly claim. So let's give you an example. Let's say I make about $1,000 per week in normal employment. That's what I make, $1,000 a week. If I were to be completely laid off and go on straight unemployment, I would get about $500 per week in unemployment benefits. If instead my employer reduces my hours by 50% and gets under the shared work program, that gets me $500 per week from my employer and $250 per week from the unemployment system. So I end up with $750 in my pocket. So through shared work, your claimant or your employees actually get more money in their pocket than if you completely lay them off. And the final bonus is that individuals who are on shared work also qualify for the extra $600 of unemployment benefits that's available through the CARES Act through the end of July. And so you don't have to worry about, some individuals, we know especially low wage workers, are making more money in unemployment because of that extra $600. Well, if you bring them back on shared work, they get the most money possible. They get money from you, their employer. They get a matching percentage from a regular unemployment claim, and they get the $600 on top of that. So I want to throw that out there as a resource for employers and employees, because it's not just for folks who are looking to downsize, but it's also looking for people who are upsizing and thinking about returning people to work. So this is a great balance between all or nothing, between full-time employment or full-time unemployment. So I wanted to throw that out there as an option. In order to, so for more resources than that, I'll type that part of our website in there. It's on esd.wa.gov/shared work. And for more updates on Operation 100%, including a full listing of our metrics, we are being transparent with the metrics we have as far as how many people are waiting, how many people, what the average case age, how many people are waiting how many weeks, including, you can see we want to be transparent with you in order to see how, what are the numbers. And so these are the numbers that we're showing as far as how we are getting to our goal of eliminating the backlogs, getting people paid out, and getting us down to adjudication wait of only 21 days. So with that, I will open myself to questions, and I see that there's at least 29 of them in the Q&A bucket. So let's get going.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Scott. That was a lot of information, and we can really tell that you and the ESD team are working really hard to try to get all of these claims, both fraudulent and real, processed. So thank you for that. By looking at the questions, one of the themes is kind of the lack of response, obviously, since the team is so overwhelmed, but around either if employers reach out, sending back completed forms indicating fraud, or like you said, employees just ignoring those notices. What can employers do when they're trying to advise their employees on what to do about those claims, or when employees are worried about the personal impact of needing to pay back benefits that they've maybe received via ATM card? What can employers do to ensure employees who are nervous about having to pay back those funds, or what steps can those employees do to return those funds that they've received?
So just so I understand the question, these are about the fraudulent claims, right? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So again, if you are an innocent victim of employment of these imposter frauds, if you did not file that claim, if a criminal filed that claim on your behalf, you do not have to pay that money back. If you receive a notice through the mail that you have to pay that money back, ignore it. We will not demand repayment of funds from innocent victims of imposter fraud. Employers, again, pay attention to the mail. Let us know if you see folks who, when we notify you of the claims, every time someone files a claim, we will notify you. And if you see somebody on that list of people who have filed claims who shouldn't be there, let us know. And you may also want to let your employees know so that they know that they may have been the victim of identity theft, and they can take steps to do what they can to protect their identity or reclaim their identity. And we have more tips like that on our website, esd.wa.gov/fraud, with information from the Attorney General, FTC, with regards to advising victims of identity theft.
Great. And what about, so I've noticed in the questions that some employees have actually received those cards with funds that are fraudulent. So they've actually been able to intercept and kind of re-get those cards back, and they have those in their possession. How would they I would assume that they would need to pay those, give those back, or how do they return them, or do they need to return them?
Uh, that is a good question. I am not entirely sure. At the very least, don't spend the money. And those cards are also being issued through KeyBank. So let KeyBank know that you have received these fraudulent claims, because that's the banking contractor we use for those frauds. And also let us know so that we can identify that make sure that that has been identified as a fraudulent claim. So we can add that to the wealth of information that we are gathering and then analyzing to prevent more fraudulent claims and also allow legitimate claims to go through.
Okay. And would that be just through the email, sending an email that they've received that, or through an SAW account?
So I put in the phone number for our fraud tip line, so you can give us a call there. And then we also have on our website, esd.wa.gov/fraud, a link to an electronic fraud hotline as well.
Okay. So that is good to know. So don't spend that money if you have received it, and then try to get that back and let KeyBank know and let your employees know that they should just hold on to that and let ESD know that they've received it. So is there a way, Scott, for employers? I know a lot of people get these notices in the mail, and that can be a little hard right now if people aren't regularly on site and checking their mail. Is there a way for employers to look at all of the claims that have been filed under their UBI or their organization's account online? Is there a way to see that all in one place, or is there somewhere that they can access that that's not hard copy?
So yes, we've heard a lot about claimants having e-services account. Employers can also sign up for e-services account, and through that method, we sent them information about claims and notices that individuals have filed claims. So if you are not going to the office, if you are not looking for paper mail, you can sign up through our website for your own e-services account for employers. And we can communicate with you information about claims that have been filed for your account.
Great. And then, so there's it seems that in some of the questions, there's questions about this additional $600 being extended. Has there been any rulemaking or regulation that you've heard about the additional unemployment benefit being extended through any longer?
So my understanding, based off of, I haven't gotten on CNN this morning to see what other federal deals have been made. My understanding is, based on the law as it exists now, that $600 ends on July 25th. I am aware that the House of Representatives has passed a bill they called the HEROES Act, which would extend that extra $600 to the end of January of next year. I am not aware of anything that the Senate has done to ratify or pass that bill itself. So I imagine that the Senate and the House are probably engaging in negotiations on that particular provision, as well as many other provisions within the HEROES Act. But at this point, the law as I know it now, again, I haven't checked CNN yet this morning to see if there's been a major breakthrough on the HEROES Act, but as of now, July 25th is the deadline.
Great. And going back to a SAW account, it looks like some people are experiencing, they've heard, one, that it's a good idea to create an account even if they have not yet experienced fraud, to try to hedge that off. And two, if they go in to create one and it looks like one's already been created for them, how do they get that information changed, or how do they go about that? Can you advise on both of those pieces?
Certainly. So the first thing is that yes, I have seen in a few news stories that some journalists have recommended, based off of tips they got from citizens, that creating your own SAW account will prevent fraud. I don't know if that's actually true in practice. We have no information one way or another. So we are not encouraging people to do that, and we are not discouraging people to do that. If you feel like you want to do that or need to do that, you may do that, but we don't know if that will actually be effective at preventing imposter fraud in your name. So with regards to if you go online and you discover that a SAW account has been made in your on your account, I just answered this question this morning with the 800 number. I'm going to find that email and grab that 800 number and post that in the chat. For those who are on the phone, our SAW help desk is 855-682-0785. Again, our SAW help desk is 855-682-0785. And you can give them a call and help and get help that way. So we're trying to see also through our computerization to see if there's a more fancier, technologically more automated computer-based way in order to clear those SAW accounts for claims that we know were fraudulently filed. So far, we haven't been able to do that yet. But for those of you who want to reclaim a SAW account that you know has been used to file a fraudulent claim, use that phone number because that's our help desk for SAW accounts.
Great. Another question in the chat is around employees who are currently on shared work. And as you mentioned, kind of taking advantage of those multiple sources of income, including the extra 600. What do employers do and how do they report if an employee is refusing to come back to work when there is work because they are making more potentially on those shared work programs than they would with their regular hourly wage? How is that a voluntary separation? How do employers navigate that situation?
So shared work is a voluntary agreement between us and the department. You know, shared work is a bonus to everybody. So I haven't heard about that being used by claimants or abused by claimants. They're generally grateful to return to work part-time while still claiming that extra $600. But as a general rule, if you offer to bring somebody who is unemployed back to work, whether it's part-time or full-time, and they refuse, there is the potential that that could disqualify them from unemployment benefits. Now, it's not 100%. There are some times that people may legitimately refuse to come back to work. For example, if you are only going to bring them back but cut their pay by 50%, that's not considered suitable work and they are allowed to refuse that and claim unemployment benefits. Another reason is that under the CARES Act with the federal pandemic unemployment assistance, there are expanded reasons for people to be eligible for unemployment benefits. For example, if somebody is sick with COVID-19, they're not required to go back to work for you, and they are eligible for those federal benefits. Also, if somebody is at home with a child because school is closed, and they can't telework, they can't otherwise work, they don't need to accept an offer of work because then they're leaving their kid at home unsupervised, which I think is probably illegal. So yeah, we're not going to make people choose to leave small children at home alone to return to work and keep unemployment benefits. So if you fall within that category, you could theoretically refuse an offer to return to work and still be eligible for benefits. So it's not an automatic denial just because somebody has refused to work. We do have to look at that claim. And so we are working on a portal. Last I checked, I don't believe we have launched that yet, but we are working on a portal for employers to report individuals who have refused to come back to work. I know other states have launched that, and we're in the process of building that and getting that up and running as well.
Great. And, I think this is, clearly hiring more people will help with this, but a lot of the feedback is that the phone lines are often very busy and it takes a long time to get through if you're able to. Are there good times to call during the day? Is there better days of the week. What are you guys seeing in terms of call volume, and what advice can you give to employers who are trying to give information on either fraudulent claims or legitimate claims? How, I know that's not something you can easily have an answer or a resolution other than getting more people on the phones, but is there a better time of day to call, or a day of the week that you tend to see more or less claims?
During normal times and with normal volumes, we would have normally recommended first thing in the morning and avoid Monday and Tuesday, because most claims and most phone calls come in Monday and Tuesday. Because we have had such a spike in volume and the speed of claims, just the sheer freight train that hit us. So just some sense of scope here. Back in the middle of March, we had about 7,000 claims per week. Over the past 10 weeks, we have paid out billions of dollars in benefits to over 800,000 Washingtonians, including including many individuals who were never eligible for unemployment benefits to begin with, because they're now eligible under the federal CARES Act programs. So trying to build up that scale while at the same time transitioning from a call model of everybody being in a central building with a call center doesn't work in a time of COVID. So we also had to transition to building up scale with everybody working from home, like I obviously am. So it's been a challenge, but with hiring more people, getting more people trained is helping. Another thing that we did a couple of weeks ago is we've retooled the balance between incoming calls and outbound calls. Because if we have our adjudicators always answering the incoming calls, they're not able to make outbound calls in order to help resolve specific claims that need to be resolved. And so we did trim back some of our inbound call volume so that our adjudicators can make more outbound calls and target folks who need to have their claims adjudicated and get more information from those particular claimants. So it's a struggle. We hear you. Again, we're hiring more people. We express all sorts of sympathy with you. We understand it's frustrating, but also as we continue to work through the backlogs, that will also help, because if I were to just give you a raw data point of how many calls we've received, what that's going to include is also not just the people who have called us, sometimes hundreds or even thousands of times a day. And so just a raw number of how many calls we received would be, I think, a bit overinflated as far as how big the problem is. So, but we do understand that it's a problem. We're hiring more people. We're continuing to bust through the backlogs in order to because the more claims that we resolve and the more people we get paid, the fewer people are going to be calling us with issues.
Great. And do you have any insights, Scott, into how any of these kind of fraudulent claims may play into reporting for PPP loans and repayment? Has that come up, and what guidance can you give if employees are filing hours worked that they're actually, or hours not worked that they actually are? Is there any guidance that you can point employers to for navigating the unemployment claims in relation to PPP loan repayments?
That is a question that I don't think I have ever heard before. I know that with regards to PPP, I always get the question, if I use PPP loans to pay my employees, will that impact their benefits? And the answer is, well, usually yes. If you pay them anything for their wages, whether it's with a PPP loan or anything, we'll deduct that money from their benefits. But as far as a fraudulent claim, I am not sure to what extent that impacts it. I'm also not sure to what extent the Small Business Administration, who is the federal agency who oversees the PPP loans, is interacting with state unemployment agencies as some sort of verifier. But I do know that all of the federal government is aware of the fraudulent claims that have been filed. And so we continue to work with them. I just don't know if what the overlap is between fraudulent claims and PPP loans and what the impact would be, if any.
Great. And then just in terms of employers responding to those claims, again, if you've completed the form in the timely manner, you've faxed it back to ESD and don't hear anything back, should you assume that that's been taken care of? Is there any other follow-up that employers need to be doing to make sure that those are being recorded as fraudulent?
Continue to pay attention to your claims. Every quarter, we send you what's called our Notice of Benefit Charges or Statement of Benefit Charges. So there's an initial letter we send out when the claim is filed, letting you know that Jane has filed a claim. But then there's also a statement we send out at the end of every quarter. So the next statement would come in July. That lists the amount of unemployment benefits that have been paid out to individuals within that quarter. If Jane is still listed as somebody receiving benefits, then we may not have gotten the message that Jane's claim is fraudulent and needs to be removed. So if you see that when we send out your quarterly statement of benefit charges in July, please reach back out to us and let us know.
Great. Let's see. How many, when somebody's asking about the number of fraudulent charges, can you repeat that number? I think, did you say it was 190,000, or no, that was the remaining claims. How many fraudulent charges have been received to date that you know of?
So the preliminary estimate announced by our commissioner earlier this morning was between 550 million to 650 million.
Dollars in claims?
Dollars, yes. In dollars. I don't know what that number is as far as raw claims. So we do know that the criminals, when they did file those claims, were in order to maximize the amount of money they were getting, they were also trying to backdate those claims as much as possible. There have been times where they have walked away with 5 figures in unemployment benefits in one claim, in one payment, because they backdated their claim to the date of eligibility, and they did walk away with a bunch of money. But of the 550 million to 650 million, we've covered to date 333 million, so over half.
Great. Is there an age limit, or have you seen any fraudulent claims coming on behalf of folks who maybe aren't in the workplace yet or are doing any sort of internships, or do people need to be concerned about those under 18 being targeted at all?
So I do know, wow, it's interesting. Well, in order to have an unemployment claim, and usually a fraudulent claim, is you need to be able, in order for anybody to file, they need to have some sort of employment history. They need to have lost income. We are, at the end of the day, an insurance company, and what we insure against is lost income. So if somebody doesn't have any income to lose, we generally don't pay out benefits to that person because that's not our risk pool that we're insuring against, either on a state or a federal level. So I'm not sure to what extent minors have been targeted. I know that oftentimes because public officials tend to have the most of their personal employment information out for the public to digest, that's publicly available, that has been especially lucrative for claimants. For example, Western Washington University had a substantial number of their employees targeted and used for imposter fraud claims, because as public servants, the public wants to know how much they're paying us and are we earning our paycheck. But that also means that more of our employment information and wage information is available for criminals to steal and use for their own methods, such as filing fraudulent claims.
And what about employers who have employees who have self-reported that they've received unemployment notices, but the employer hasn't received anything? What should they do to follow up if they haven't received those unemployment notices that typically come out in the mail?
Check with us about your address. Make sure that we have up-to-date contact information for you as employers. So you can either do that through our e-services account. I'm also going to post in the chat the 800 number for employers to contact us, and that's 855-TAX-WAGE. Again, that's 855 tax wage, and that's the helpline for employers for information as far as what updates they need to make to their account. Hey, we may have the wrong address for me or something like that. That's my initial gut reaction, is there may be an address information discrepancy there, and so we want to make sure that that's there.
Is that something that they can catch through the online SAW employer account, or is that something that is best to call about, or would that be caught online?
Try online. If you can resolve it through creating your own employer account through Secure Access Washington and your own e-services account, that may work. If that doesn't work for you, if you're not able to set that up, or you don't have internet access, or anything like that, you can try 855 tax wage. That's our 800 number for employer information on their tax accounts.
Great. And just wanted to also let a note for those who are both just listening and participating in the webinar. We will provide the links and numbers that Scott has provided in our follow-up email. So in case you missed some of those or didn't write them down in time, we will make sure that those are sent out, as well as other resources that he's provided. So Scott, are you seeing any certain industries or levels, or kind of different, we had one comment saying mostly senior staff are receiving fraudulent unemployment claims. Or who is being targeted most, would you say? Is it folks who are making more money because claims are higher, or is it just kind of totally random? What are your thoughts, or what have you seen on that?
I'm not sure if I've seen the raw statistics, so I'm just going to step out on a limb here that if I was a criminal and if I had a whole stockpile of fraudulent claims that I could file, I would start with the highest paid folks first, because those are the people who are going to receive more benefits, which means that if I am successful in filing a false claim and getting that money, I'm going to get more bang for my buck. So the fact that somebody is noticing that senior staff who are probably higher paid staff are being more claimed first makes sense to me. But again, I'm not privy to those statistics, but so I'm kind of speculating here.
Great. And then another question about standby. If an employee's original standby status has expired and they've gotten denied when trying to reapply, what can they potentially, associated with the fraudulent claims and things, what advice do you have for employees that are experiencing that?
So yeah, this is probably going to have to be the last question I can answer, because I do have a 12 o'clock meeting I got to jump to. With regards to standby, this has been a program that we have expanded and morphed probably the most with regards to unemployment benefits since this whole pandemic thing started. Back in the middle of March, when we first expanded standby, we said, well, we'll just give everybody 12 weeks and we'll let part-time workers on there. And then when the governor waived work search requirements for everybody, we said, well, if everybody has their work search waived, we'll just place everybody on standby. Pardon me. And so, as a consequence, work search still remains waived. We do not require people to search for work. The legislature has consented to continue to extend that waiver until, at this date, June 17th. And so everybody is on standby automatically from the end of March, when work search was waived, until the middle of June. At which point, we don't know what the legislature is going to do as far as extending work search waivers any further. But as the economy reopens, we may start requiring more people to look for work as a condition of receiving unemployment benefits. But we'll see what that looks like come the middle of June, depending on what the legislature does and other sorts of events. I mean, as we've seen throughout this pandemic, what can happen in a matter of 2 weeks is astounding as far as things that change for us. So yeah, and just also remember that for standby, it doesn't mean that if you are denied standby, it doesn't mean that you are denied benefits. All standby is a tool for waiving work search, because if you are on standby, you don't need to look for work. Nobody needs to look for work. Everybody's on standby, and we'll continue to update that and change that as time progresses, especially as the June 17th deadline comes up.
Great. Thank you so much. I think that was a really helpful flag too. And everything, all the information you provided, Scott, has been super helpful, and all of the resources that you've provided. Thank you all for attending. Thank you, Scott, for making the time to chat with us. Like I said, we will send out information and all the resources that Scott provided, and hopefully some more answers to questions. Please consider attending our next We Got This WA webinar, which will be next Tuesday, June 9th. It's going to be featuring Vice Admiral Raquel Bono, which is an update on COVID, and you can register on the Chamber's website. Thank you, Scott, and thank you to all of our attendees for making time and for participating today. Have a great afternoon.
All right, thank you. My pleasure.
Bye.